Think about the things you use every day. Your phone, clothes, even your food. They might come from different countries. That's global trade. Countries sell what they make best to each other. This makes sure everyone has what they need. Ships are super important for global trade. They carry huge amounts of goods across oceans. This connects countries and economies around the world. Without ships, global trade would be much harder and more expensive. But like anything else, using ships costs money. Countries have ports where ships load and unload goods. These ports often charge fees for using their facilities and services. Now, things are getting a bit more complicated with new fees the U.S. wants to charge Chinese ships. So buckle up as we dive into the details. The U.S. has a new plan that is causing quite a stir in the shipping world. This move is making headlines across the globe, and it's not just industry insiders who are paying attention. The decision is part of a broader effort to address ongoing trade tensions and concerns about fair competition in international shipping. For years, the U.S. has been looking for ways to level the playing field, and now they're taking a bold step that could reshape how goods move between the world's two largest economies. The new policy is simple but significant. The U.S. wants to charge Chinese ships more money for docking at American ports. This means that every time a Chinese vessel arrives with goods ranging from electronics to clothing, it will face higher costs just to unload its cargo. The goal, according to U.S. officials, is to encourage fairer trade practices and to address what they see as an imbalance in shipping fees and regulations. This isn't a small fee either. In fact, it's a substantial new cost that could have ripple effects throughout the entire supply chain. Here's the breakdown. Chinese-owned ships will be hit with a fee of $50 for every net ton. To put that in perspective, a large container ship can carry tens of thousands of net tons, so the total fees could quickly add up to hundreds of thousands of dollars per visit. This is a major change from previous policies where fees were much lower and often standardized regardless of the ship's country of origin. Net tonnage is a way to measure a ship's cargo carrying capacity. It's a technical term, but it basically means the amount of space available for cargo. The bigger the ship, the more it pays. And it gets worse for Chinese shipping companies because these fees aren't just a one-time thing. This fee will increase by $30 every year for 3 years. That means by the end of the third year, Chinese ships could be paying up to $140 per net ton. This escalating fee structure is designed to put increasing pressure on Chinese shipping companies and, by extension, on Chinese exporters. Even ships built in China but owned by other countries aren't off the hook. The U.S. wants to make sure that companies can't simply get around the new rules by registering their ships elsewhere or using foreign ownership as a loophole. These ships will have to pay $18 per net ton, with a yearly increase of $5 for 3 years. While this fee is lower than the one for Chinese-owned ships, it's still a significant new cost for any company using Chinese-built vessels, and it sends a clear message that the U.S. is serious about tightening regulations. That's a lot of extra cash. For shipping companies, these new fees could mean millions of dollars in additional expenses each year. Some may try to pass these costs on to their customers, which could eventually lead to higher prices for goods in stores across America. These new fees are being put in place gradually over 180 days. This phased approach is meant to give shipping companies, importers, and exporters time to adjust their operations and budgets. It also allows U.S. ports to prepare for any changes in shipping traffic or logistics. The U.S. government says this will give everyone time to adjust. Officials argue that the new fees are necessary to protect American jobs and industries, and to ensure that foreign companies play by the same rules as domestic ones. They also hope it will encourage more investment in U.S.-built ships and American shipping companies. But many people are worried about the impact these fees will have on businesses and consumers. Small importers fear they'll be squeezed by higher costs, while shoppers could see price hikes on everyday goods. As the new rules take effect, all eyes will be on the ports to see how the shipping industry, and the global economy, responds to this bold new move. The U.S. government says these new fees aren't meant to be punishment. They claim it's about leveling the playing field. They argue that China has been unfairly dominating the shipbuilding industry for too long. The U.S. wants to encourage more shipbuilding at home. They believe these fees will make American shipbuilders more competitive. By making it more expensive for Chinese ships to dock, they hope U.S. companies will get a boost. The U.S. also argues that China has been engaging in unfair trade practices. They point to government subsidies and other policies that they say give Chinese companies an advantage. These fees, they argue, are a way to push back against these practices. But not everyone is convinced. Critics say these fees are just a form of protectionism that will hurt the U.S. economy in the long run. They argue that higher shipping costs will be passed on to businesses and consumers. China isn't thrilled about these new fees, to say the least. They see it as a direct attack on their shipping industry and a violation of international trade rules. They've made it clear that they won't take this lying down. The Chinese government argues that these fees will disrupt global trade and hurt everyone, including the U.S. They say it will increase costs for businesses and could lead to higher prices for consumers. China has accused the U.S. of hypocrisy. They point out that the U.S. has its own policies that support its industries. They've hinted that they might retaliate with their own fees or other measures. This back and forth is raising concerns about a potential trade war. It's a tense situation that has many people on edge. The U.S. and China are the world's two largest economies. They're also fierce competitors. For years they've been locked in a trade war, slapping tariffs on each other's goods. Think of tariffs like taxes on imports. The U.S. currently has tariffs as high as 145% on Chinese products. That means some Chinese goods are now much more expensive for Americans to buy. China hasn't hesitated to retaliate. They've placed tariffs of up to 125% on U.S. products entering their country. This trade war has created uncertainty in the global economy. Businesses are hesitant to make big decisions because they don't know what will happen next. And, consumers are feeling the pinch of higher prices. These new docking fees are just the latest chapter in this ongoing saga. They add another layer of complexity to an already strained relationship. So, how could these new fees on Chinese ships actually affect you? It might seem like something that only matters to big companies or politicians, but the reality is, these changes could have a direct impact on your everyday life, even if you never set foot near a shipping port. Let's break down what this could mean for you and your wallet. Well, get ready to potentially open your wallet a little wider. When shipping costs go up, those extra expenses don't just disappear. They often get passed down the line, eventually reaching you, the consumer. That means you could start noticing higher prices the next time you're out shopping, whether you're picking up groceries, clothes, or even a new phone. Remember all those goods that ships bring from China to the U.S.? We're talking about everything from electronics and toys to furniture and kitchen appliances. These products fill the shelves of your favorite stores and online shops, and a huge portion of them arrive by sea. Those goods could get more expensive. If shipping companies have to pay new fees to bring products into the country, they'll likely raise their prices to cover those costs. That means the price tags you see at the store could start creeping up, sometimes in ways that are hard to miss. Companies importing things like electronics, clothes, and toys might have to raise prices to cover the extra shipping costs. Even items you don't think of as imported could be affected, since so many products or their parts come from overseas. Retailers may have no choice but to update their prices, and you might notice more frequent price changes or fewer discounts. For families on a budget, these increases can add up quickly, making it harder to stretch every dollar. And it's not just about things you buy directly from China. Many everyday products, from your morning coffee maker to your kid's backpack, might contain parts or materials that were shipped from China, even if the final product was assembled somewhere else. Many American companies rely on parts and materials from China. If those become more expensive, it could affect the prices of a wide range of products. Manufacturers might have to pay more for the components they need, and those costs can trickle down to you. If those become more expensive, it could affect the prices of a wide range of products. Even items labeled "Made in the USA" might cost more if they depend on Chinese parts or materials, so the impact could be broader than you think. These new fees could also hurt American exporters. If it becomes more expensive for Chinese ships to dock in the U.S., China might respond by buying less from American companies, especially things like soybeans, cars, or machinery. China might buy less from the U.S. if their ships have to pay more to dock at American ports. This could mean fewer sales for American businesses, and in some cases, lost jobs or lower wages for workers in industries that depend on exports. This could hurt American businesses and farmers who rely on selling their products to China. For small businesses and family farms, even a small drop in sales can make a big difference, affecting local communities across the country. The bottom line is that these new fees could ripple through the economy, impacting both businesses and consumers. Whether you're shopping for groceries, running a business, or working in manufacturing or agriculture, the effects could be felt in your daily life. It's a reminder that global trade policies aren't just headlines, they can shape the prices you pay and the opportunities available in your community. The big question now is whether the U.S. and China can find a way to resolve this trade dispute. The world is watching closely, as the outcome will have far-reaching consequences not just for these two economic giants, but for the global economy as a whole. The stakes are incredibly high, and the decisions made in the coming months could shape international trade for years to come. Both sides have a lot to lose if things continue to escalate. American farmers, Chinese manufacturers, tech companies, and millions of workers on both sides of the Pacific are already feeling the impact. If the dispute drags on, it could lead to higher prices for consumers, disrupted supply chains, and a slowdown in economic growth worldwide. One possibility is that the two countries could return to the negotiating table. Diplomacy has always been a powerful tool in resolving international conflicts, and renewed talks could open the door to creative solutions that address the core issues at stake. They could try to hammer out a new trade deal that addresses their concerns, such as intellectual property rights, market access, and fair competition. This would not be easy, but it could pave the way for a more stable and predictable trading relationship. This would require compromise from both sides. Each country would need to make concessions and find common ground, setting aside some of their differences for the greater good. Trust-building measures, phased agreements, or third-party guarantees could help make a deal more palatable. Another option is that other countries could get involved. Allies and trading partners of both the U.S. and China have a vested interest in seeing the dispute resolved, and they could act as mediators or offer proposals to help bridge the gap. Organizations like the World Trade Organization could play a role in mediating the dispute. The WTO has mechanisms for resolving trade disagreements, and its involvement could lend legitimacy and structure to the negotiation process. International pressure might encourage the U.S. and China to find a solution. As the world's two largest economies, their actions set the tone for global trade, and other nations are urging them to avoid further escalation. Of course, there's also the chance that things could get worse before they get better. If talks break down or new disputes arise, the trade war could intensify, leading to even more uncertainty and hardship for businesses and consumers alike. The trade war could escalate further, with both sides imposing even more tariffs or other trade barriers. This could trigger a cycle of retaliation, making it even harder to reach a resolution and increasing the risk of a prolonged economic downturn. The future is uncertain, but one thing is clear: finding a peaceful resolution to this trade dispute is in everyone's best interest. Whether through negotiation, international cooperation, or new agreements, the hope is that cooler heads will prevail and a path forward can be found that benefits not just the U.S. and China, but the entire world. The world is watching closely as the U.S. and China navigate these choppy waters of trade. The new docking fees are just one wave in a much larger storm. The outcome of this dispute could have far-reaching consequences for the global economy. It's a complex issue with no easy answers. But understanding the basics of global trade, the reasons behind these new fees, and the potential impact on businesses and consumers is crucial. As we sail into uncharted territory, it's important to stay informed and engaged. The decisions made by these two economic giants will affect us all.